we bought a lending operation from Canada, and they did online lending, and they had run a pay-per-click Google AdWords campaign. And they came in, they showed me data and said, as soon as we increase the budget over X, it doesn't work. The ROI falls off the cliff. You cannot increase the budget more than this. We have to do something else. And I said, are you sure you're doing it right? Like, are you sure you're executing it well? Which is different than saying the tactic is wrong. The old, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe we just need to do it a little different. So when you started to peel that back, I realized that they didn't have the experience or the expertise in how to really do it the correct way.
There are secrets out there, guys, performance marketing secrets, and knowing just one or two of them can absolutely light up your funnels. Let's go. This is the Revenue Driven CMO. I'm your host, Chris Mechanic. Join me as I uncover the secrets of the world's most elite CMOs and marketing leaders. The Revenue Driven CMO is sponsored by Web Mechanics, the AI-driven performance agency that makes you smarter. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Revenue Driven CMO. I'm your host, Chris Mechanic, here with a really exciting guest. Really just a powerhouse in the world of marketing and advertising. This is a person whose career has spanned over 25 years and is just littered with examples of innovation, leadership, creative problem solving. He's very much a hands-on strategist, but also a leader, a mentor. He thrives on new challenges and embracing really that dynamic between art and science, which, I talk about all the time and we'll get into here today. And for the last 10 years, he's been working his way up the chain to where he is now CMO at QCHI, which is a really interesting financial services company focused on lending both to consumers and small businesses. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Jevan Taylor.
Welcome. Thank you. That's a very warm welcome. I feel like I should have you introduce me to every meeting I'm in because that was embarrassingly nice. So that was great.
Absolutely.
What to live up to now?
That would be funny, wouldn't it? Just like an announcer or something to introduce you at meetings. That'd be hilarious.
You're my hype man. Come in, play a little music.
Yeah, right.
Give me a little intro. Great.
Cool, Jevan. Well, we like to lead with the value, my friend. Let's jump right into it. You've had an amazing career. What would you say is one of your best kept secrets to success in marketing?
To me, whether it's been marketing or advertising, it's lateral thinking, which, some people want to just say that's creative problem solving. But literally, lateral thinking is a little bit more about, are you looking at all of the data you should be looking at? Can you look at it in a new lens? Can you look at it in a new light? Can you look at it from a different perspective? And I think so many times in my career, that's been the key to like big successes or big wins is thinking that way. And the definition is technically you're not concerned with playing with the existing pieces, but you're seeking to change the very pieces you look at. And I think that's what a lot of marketing people have to do is don't get constrained by what you did last year or marketing teams that work with the same campaigns over and over again. They tend to get narrower and narrower and narrower rather than, oh, wait, I got to go broader. I got to look at this from a different angle.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of insights, I believe, come from. Like something that's coming to my mind right now. Have you seen that episode of Mad Men where Don Draper's in there and they have the cigarette client and he's asking him, Don's asking him all these questions about cigarettes or whatever. And then eventually the client says that they toast, they toast the tobacco and Don's like, what, you guys toasted? And he's like, yeah, everybody toasted. But he's like, it's toast. And like, that was the slogan of the campaign and it was like really successful. Have you seen that or no?
Yeah. I don't remember that one specifically. I've seen a bunch. I'm like, I missed my calling in the industry for like 20, 30 years because that would have been great. Just say whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
All the old ads are great.
But,
what you do? Legal stuff.
But yeah, that comes to mind. But can you think of any examples in your career, like where maybe the Don Draper wasn't the best example, but like, what's an example from your career that you can point to?
when I first got to QCHI, and I'm going to make myself sound like a dinosaur because I'm going to talk about direct mail.
Yeah.
First got to QCHI, they had a direct mail program they ran when they would open a store or try to support a store. And they were looking at data and it never worked. They could never prove that the direct mail could deliver enough volume to make it worth the cost. So they gave up.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got in, they told me, yeah, we tried this, it didn't work. And we looked at it and it was that case of, well, the only data they were using was the trade radius of the store, and they were just playing with the miles and then demographics. But when you thought about our customer base was too broadly covering most of the population,
Mhm.
then you weren't able to narrow in enough. So they kept trying to work the variables. Oh, what if we tighten the age here, tighten the income here, tighten the trade radius, and it just never worked. And so we have to bring in new data. And, one of the defining characteristics of a lot of consumer lending is what's your credit score? And that is applicable. So we then got into a form of direct mail that allowed us to leverage the credit score as an overlay. So now you're doing geo, demographics, and credit band.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it worked and it's ROI positive. And even though it's a dinosaur and nobody wants to talk about it because digital social is cool, it's still a highly ROI positive program and we still run it today.
Yeah.
And now we're about injecting new data into the conversation to change the formula. And then that's fairly simple, but that's just a clean, easy example of that, at work.
Yeah.
But the current team had just focused on, well, no, so we would always do it, but just look at these variables. This is what you can do, and you gotta, sometimes it's just coming in clean and looking at it with fresh eyes and thinking about, well, what's another way to attack that problem?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's creative problem solving. But to me, creative problem solving is a little more like you've got the existing pieces and you got to find a way to just hammer them together. Mm-hmm. Lateral thinking, like, am I missing a whole avenue, a whole approach or angle or orientation?
Yeah. I bet you ChatGPT would be good at coming up with like lateral thinking. Like there's got to be some prompts written for that.
Yeah. We were recently working on a corporate communications idea to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And we used ChatGPT to generate a list of initial things you might do for your 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
And it gave you a good list of messages you want to clear, whatever. And it got us, I'm going to tell you, it got 80% of the content done for us easy. But then because we knew certain things about the company and the personnel, we were able to come up with some things it didn't have because it didn't know. It's only trained on what's, out there, but it didn't know some of the entrepreneurial culture of our company, the founders. So we just leveraged it to do the foundational work.
Yeah.
But then true creativity is where are you going that isn't in ChatGPT? Because that's mined from the existing data, right? Not new stuff.
Right.
And so
let me ask you this then. So in a world like what you were talking about with direct mail, where, you tried it a couple times and it hadn't worked, but you were like, hey guys, let's try again. I'm curious, like, at what point do you give up and move on versus like, do you try it again? Like, at what point is it like, oh, that channel is just a dog, like it's not going to work?
I think that's instinct and experience, like how many different ways have you tried it?
Yeah.
And how you have to also assess the quality at which you thought it was done. So I'll give you another example and I'll finish answering your question. We bought a lending operation from Canada and they did online lending and they had run a pay-per-click Google AdWords campaign. And they came in, they showed me data and said, as soon as we increase the budget over X, it doesn't work. The ROI falls off the cliff. You cannot increase the budget more than this. We have to do something else. And I said, are you sure you're doing it right? Like, are you sure you're executing it well, which is different than saying the tactic is wrong, the old, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe we need to do it a little different. So when you started to peel that back, I realized that they didn't have the experience or the expertise in how to really do it the correct way.
Yeah.
So by changing the ad copy, by expanding into long-tail keywords, by moving our mix across the provinces, all of a sudden we were able to spend a lot more and still get positive ROI. So we broke through the threshold they thought. So a lot of the times it's like, well, how well did you do it? How well did you execute it?
Right.
So I think the answer is, how many different things have you tried? What's the quality of the execution you did? And upon review, does it look like you had some big holes or not? And then the third is sometimes what people call the sniff test, but I'm like, is it logical it should work or not work? Like, are you really fighting to try to make it fit for you? Or like, is it logical that it's not going to be that big of a deal? And so I think I generally tried a couple of times probably, but I think you got to put that assessment on it. Sometimes that answer might be different.
Yeah.
There's no clean answer for that one, I think.
Well, my glass broke. That was weird.
Just literally, that thought was so compelling, you broke your glasses.
Totally. Yeah. You just literally broke my glasses with that thought. It's like a new definition for mind blown. It was like,
cartoon. But cartoon to me is also the data, right? You got to rely on what data is.
Yeah. So, what's a takeaway that we can give folks listening? Like, there's a lot of CMOs, a lot of marketing leaders listening, being like, oh man, I need to apply some lateral thinking to this channel or this campaign that's just like not working. ChatGPT aside, what are some prompts? I'll say prompts, but like, what are some like thought starters maybe that we could give them? Or what piece of advice could we give them that's actionable to walk away with?
So I would always say start with the data you do have and then brainstorm data you don't have. But a lot of companies have a lot of rich data, your transactional data, your understanding of the customer, what competitors are doing, what you've tried in the past. So sometimes it does start with like, get all that synthesized around you and look at the high level pieces.
Yeah.
If all of your competitors are doing a tactic and you're not, that might be worth looking at. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
That's copying, but maybe you could do it better or apply it to your brand better. But, some of our insights came out of just like consumer behavior. Look at how your consumers or your customers are using your product. There can be insights there. How often do they use it and where are they using it? Are they using it differently than you intended? Those are interesting areas. Consumer research helps. Syndicated research helps, whether you have a segmentation study. So I would definitely say wallow around in your own data. And then sometimes, the old classic, let's lead an ideation session or a brainstorming session can help. If the group of people that you're working with knows the basics of what you're already doing, then the prompt is, well, what aren't we doing?
Yeah.
What are other brands doing in other categories that aren't even our category? Sometimes you go and you can do sometimes I've gone into like retail stores with teams and just look at what other people are doing, even in categories that aren't having to do with us.
Yeah.
Is there any inspiration there of, could you apply that to what we do, even if it's in a different way?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just challenging people to like, let's stop working on the existing projects for an hour and not talk about existing projects. Let's talk about new things we could do. Start with a white sheet of paper. Brainstorm a little bit. Don't be constrained by budget. Follow good brainstorming rules. Don't find ways to say no. Find ways to say, yes, maybe we could do that.
Yeah.
A little just fresh brainstorming can help. Because what I've learned is that a lot of people have an idea, but they're so caught up in the existing project they're working on that one never comes out. So I think, look at your own data, look at your competitors, look at how your customers use it, think about research. You might have to field a research study with some questions.
Yeah.
Do a little brainstorming yourself. And then sometimes it's even on major campaigns or major projects you have. If you're thinking about, well, how do I make this perform better? I try to go down the list of the who, what, when, where, how. Like, who are we targeting? What are we saying? How are we reaching them?
Yeah.
How does this thing connect to the other vehicles or tactics we're doing? And then look for the gaps or the holes or the overlaps.
Yep.
Right? Like, we're running our direct mail campaign. And I'm like, but we know who these people are. So why aren't we reaching them in the digital space? Why aren't we loading that list into our programmatic buy? Why can't we feed that in and inform our lookalike modeling that we use in our digital programmatic buy?
Yeah.
Well, we were doing both, but this one's over here run by one person. This one's running over here by another person. It's like, Well, now let's connect them together. So sometimes just looking at the pieces you're using and looking for connections or looking for gaps in the places that you have done stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What am I not doing? Which really means you've got to get an overview of all the stuff you're doing and try to look at it as a landscape, not tunnel in. You're so deep in this one tech. I'm only looking at paid search, or I'm only looking at my radio buy, and I'm not looking at it at the plan level of all the pieces tied together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I liked the like first principles or first order principles type thinking. It's just like in the case of your direct mail program is like, are the right people seeing this? Or is the audience right? You know, because having the wrong audience, like that's going to be an issue, right?
Oh,
And
well,
you could go through. I mean, there's a few other, just like really critical elements, like is the audience right? Right? Is the offer? Are people responding well to the offer, whatever that is? I heard somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, but I heard recently a lateral thinking technique, which was like, how could I totally mess this up? Right? Like, what's a way that I could really ruin this campaign? Like, definitely ruin. Right.
no.
And one way would be like to be just absurdly high priced. Right. Like, if you were triple the price of all your competitors, like that probably wouldn't work. So then you might think, okay, well, maybe it's a price issue.
Sometimes we call that the bookends. On any given issue, you can probably go to one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
What if I was the highest? What if I was the lowest? What would that do? Sometimes I try to tell people, okay, budget was no option. I bet you're constraining your thinking because of budget, because you think it's too expensive or won't work or whatever.
Yeah.
But in testing, a lot more is achievable than you think. So assume we had an unlimited amount of money. What would you do?
That's a good prompt right there.
Yeah.
It's like, what would you do with
I would send a person to everybody's house and give them a personal demonstration of this product. And once they got that, they would know how. Well, we can't do that. But does that mean we need more digital content that's explainer videos and more educational type content? Because you're telling me you don't think they understand it. So you got to drive to their house and if I could just walk you through this, you'd buy it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that implies that we need more space to educate, right? So then that leads you down. We're not going to solve it by sending people to your house, but we could solve it with a digital explainer video or broader content on our social media channels or a blog post that's more deep in that content. Or maybe we need an explainer video or graphic on the website.
I like that. I like that mental model. It's just like, what would you do if you had unlimited budget? Like that really gets the creative juices flowing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because there's more ways to creatively address budget than sometimes I think people think, and you can't let them be constrained by your own thinking.
Yeah, totally.
And the other thing I'll tell you is, especially more junior people or entry level people, they almost need to be trained that it's their job to think. Yes, you're here to execute. Yes, we have to execute that tactic. Yes, we gotta run that paid search campaign. We gotta do the social posts. But you should be thinking every day about what you could do to make it better. What ideas do you have to test, change, tweak? And I ask them the questions a lot. So you got to train them from the beginning that, wait, he's going to ask me in this meeting. I know he's going to ask me what we should test next, or I'm going to show him results from the last test. And I know he's going to ask me, okay, well, regardless of that, what are we doing next?
Yeah.
And get them to start thinking about that so that the whole team is every day thinking about, okay, what's next? What do I try next? How do I try to improve? You've got to create a culture of constant improvement. It doesn't matter if it's working well and has a positive ROI. Hypothetically, you can have a higher ROI. Technically, there's no ceiling to that. So we should never be satisfied with a great campaign. Now, you can say, well, I got a great campaign and a small idea, and I got an underperforming campaign and a big idea. I know where to prioritize. But everybody on the team should be thinking of stuff daily, if you will. Not just in annual planning, not just in a big whiteboard session, but every day.
Yeah. That's a good leadership tip right there.
you got to ask if they come into a meeting thinking, I'm just going to come into this meeting and the leader is going to tell me what to do and I'm going to take my orders and I'm going to go execute. Well, then you've lost the ability to challenge them to be thinkers. So the people on my team, I challenge them to run their campaigns or initiatives. When we do annual planning, I don't start with, here's the 5 things we need to test next year. I start with, what are the 5 things you think we should test next year?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't add or prioritize or help them, but you got to set the expectation that they should be thinking. And a lot of times I find that inspiration ideas come when you're working along the way, not, no, I must sit down and come up with ideas now. You got to let it be every day. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, an idea pops in my head, which is just your brain working overnight when there's no clutter, processing things that you absorbed during the day, but didn't have time to like really gel.
Right.
And I'll pop up with this idea and I have a little notepad next to my bed and I'm like, oh, I gotta write that down before I forget. And that's an idea for later.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. And it's tough to just sit down with a blank sheet of paper and be like, okay, idea. Dude, I meant to tell you. So I discovered, this isn't so much for lateral thinking, but I discovered a really good prompt for GPT, which is like a monster prompt. So, and I'll share in the show notes and send it to you, but it's like, you start with the objective, like what it is that you're looking to do. And the prompt itself says, employ first order principles and chain of thought reasoning to dissect the problem, identify underlying assumptions and analyze potential solutions, synthesize into a concise response that includes first order principles analysis, chain of thought reasoning, solution identification, reordering and focus, incorporate cognitive hacks, such as a comms razor for simplicity, adversarial thinking, etc., and then actionable insights. And it ends with, note your response should embody critical thinking, depth of analysis, and innovation, balance complexity with practicality, offering unique insights that are both theoretically rich and grounded in real-world applicability.
Wow.
Consider future potentials and uncertainties, providing a guide. So I've used this a couple times, and I'll include that in the show notes, but I've used this a couple times and it was really good. Like, like the responses that it gave were, not, I mean, they were solid.
I have not yet gotten into that level of depth of using AI. We use a lot of it in daily sort of thought starters and helpers, especially getting off the blank sheet of paper. But I've not used it for that depth, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's one of my future goals, is to learn how to use it in a more robust way. I think we're just scratching the surface right now. Go deeper on using it.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, I didn't write that prompt. I just found that somewhere in the wild, and I stumble upon pretty good ones like that periodically, but I have, it feels so good when you like write a nice prompt and you hit enter and then the output is just like, great. You're like, that's amazing. It's like the best feeling in the world. You're like, I just saved 12 hours. Thank you very much.
Actually, yeah, I was talking to my director of analytics today and he's like, yeah, we just used AI to save 2 days worth of work because we pumped this approach for geocoding in there. We found out it wouldn't work in an hour. Instead of spending 2 days doing it. So then we went, did it a different way and we got the answer.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Funny though, because you bring that up and I'll circle back to lateral thinking. With the power of AI, it lets small teams be mighty because you don't need as many people.
Yeah.
One person with the power of AI can do the work of what it would take 2 people, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But to me, to get a competitive advantage over your competitors, we're also using AI to do the basic same things, right? I can go to ChatGPT too. That's the power. Then true differentiation is going to come from true creativity, true lateral thinking, as opposed to just logical thinking. Well, if you have this and this, you should do this, right? It's going to be even tougher as marketers to find a competitive point of difference, to find an edge, whether it's a true or perceptual advantage that's used in marketing and branding. It's going to be even harder. So creativity and strategic thinking are going to be even more important because it's going to have to be more than what AI can do.
Yeah.
The CEO is convinced he can come up with a marketing plan by just going to Chat GPT and saying, give me a marketing plan for a consumer finance company.
Right.
We better be bringing more value than that.
Yeah. And then there's creativity, like human creativity. If you can couple it with the AI, then it's like really kind of unstoppable.
Yep.
Like I did some of my best outputs have come from when I've said, hey, here's an example of like a really great campaign or a really great like ad that we did recently. Come up with 5 more examples, like for this product or targeting this market or something. So that's pretty interesting. But dude, time is flying. That means we're having fun, which is good. This is a great episode already. I want to give you an opportunity to brag a little bit. And you've been mentioning your team. Tell us, and we love win stories, right? So tell us one of your biggest win stories. Sorry, I'm just looking for my notes here, but like, what's one of your, what's like a big win story that your team really stepped up, or just like give us.
We created a brand from scratch, which is the first time I've ever done that in my career. On my advertising side, I've worked on plenty of brand awareness campaigns, brand perception campaigns, even worked with some brands to evolve their brand, refreshing it, for older brands. But at QCHI, I got the opportunity to create a brand from a white sheet of paper because they had grown by acquisition. So when I joined the company, they had 13 different brand names because they'd acquired, and they never had branded them all one. And they didn't really quite see the value of that. And so I was able to do stakeholder research, consumer research, develop a brand strategy, brand identity. And then I worked with a design firm to come up with names. Literally, the name itself was new.
Wow.
It's the name. And then had a whole visual identity built from scratch because what they had before was all awful and outdated. So it's not like we took something and just tweaked it. We started with a blank sheet of paper. So name, identity, whole visual toolkit from scratch.
Nice.
And so I feel like my brand child. And then we did a whole website, user experience and design. And then we went into the stores and we actually redesigned the look of the stores to align with the brand.
Really?
So I'm talking color, carpet, furniture, decor, etc. So when you saw the brand, it was just one continuous experience across all touch points. It took a lot of work and it was really cool to see it come to life.
Yeah.
To me, it was essential because if you want to be effective in today's digital world, it's really hard to work with 13 different brands, right? One brand is a lot better, but we did it in a test market. So we were able to compare new customer acquisition and revenue performance in the stores that got rebranded and supported to ones that we hadn't yet got to.
Yeah.
So test and control. Now it wasn't perfect because you can't control for every variable.
Yeah.
But they were in the same state, roughly the same geography, selling the same products. And the new stores under our new brand name outperformed both on new customer acquisition and revenue. Oh, it took a couple months. So that was like the anxiety point because month 1, you didn't really see any difference. Month 2, you didn't really see the difference. But then we got to month 3, 4, 5, 6, and you really saw it take off. And you saw that improve performance. And based on that, we were able to roll it out to all of the stores, all of our states, and all of our channels.
That's awesome.
So just to build, it took a team, took the full team, took full effort. But to make a new brand come to life was just really cool.
It is really cool. Where can we see this new brand? Is it live?
Oh, it's everywhere. So yeah, it's live. So it's Len Nation is our brand name.
Len Nation. That's nice. That's really good.
So website, retail stores, all that. But so that was just,
love it. Ooh, that's so clean.
Yeah.
So fresh and so clean. That's awesome.
It's just, that had never happened before in my career where you got to create something from scratch. I know there's startups all the time that get to create their own brand or whatever, but on the advertising agency side, most of who you worked with who had meaningful budgets had well-established brand names, right?
Well, what I love about this, the color scheme is great. The the white space, like it's not busy at all. Like there's plenty of space everywhere. And I love that the typography is like large, like it's so easy to read. I mean, my monitor is, a good 5 feet away from me and I can still read it so easily. Um, and then you've got these interactive conversion mechanisms, it's like sort of that like sort of quiz-like experience, which is so much better than a form, right? Like it's miles.
We call it choose your own adventure.
Yeah. We call them wizards. That's funny. Everyone's got a name for it.
Oh, it's like, if you already know what you want, skip to the head of the line and get in and apply. If you're not sure, then let's do a discovery education approach and help you get there.
That's clean.
That was a big one. The other one I would probably focus on is, because everybody says data and everybody says attribution, but when I started at QCHI, there was none of those things. I actually hired the company's first data analyst at the company level. I hired him to be a marketing analyst because I knew I needed to show the attribution of the marketing program.
Yeah.
And so over the years, we were able to show that marketing really drove new customer acquisition. It could really drive revenue.
Yeah.
And I think the CEO previously didn't believe that it was that important. Hey, look, I have retail stores. If I put the retail store in the right place, it's like the field of dreams. People will come, they'll see it, they'll stop by, right? And I kept telling him that's not the way it works in today's world. Everybody's on their phone. I'm gonna Google that before I decide where I'm gonna go, in a physical world. But being able to show that the marketing drove meaningful new customer acquisition and do it through direct attribution across multiple tactics. But then, which was great, that was a win. I felt good about myself. Stuff we're doing is driving the company.
Yeah.
And over time, stuff we're doing was meaningfully driving the company.
Yeah.
Not in a small way, but a big way. But then I think, and this is the advice I would give other marketing folks as well, back to your original question, is you need to make sure that marketing is viewed by the company, not just as an expense on the expense side of the P&L, but it also appears on the revenue side of the P&L.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the expense, but there's a tie. And over time, what I've been able to do is, through all this attribution, build our marketing into the financial forecast. So if we increase marketing, we should be increasing revenue. If for whatever reason we need to decrease marketing to manage short-term challenges, you'd better go over to the revenue side and decrease that too.
Yeah.
I think that's where you want to be as a CMO, is to show through attribution the positive impact of marketing, but make sure that the entire company believes it's an investment that pays for itself over time. Totally. And you link it to the financial forecast. So right now, today, when we do our forecast, in the forecast, how much money are we spending in marketing? Well, that results in a certain number of new customers, which results in a revenue flow over time. And we bake that in. Oh, we got to shave back marketing to make the numbers work. Well, now I got to decrease revenue accordingly.
Yeah.
Now, really that works because your marketing expense is an expense in month one. And usually your lifetime value of a customer is spread across months and years.
Yeah.
And so my CEO is like, well, can't I have all the revenue now? I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. So, talking about the concept of lifetime value, not just first purchase, but working with your teams to build it into the like infrastructure of the company, into the DNA of how they think about the forecast and how marketing contributes to the business. Whether that's returning customers or new customer acquisition, doesn't matter. Same principle. So you got to go beyond marketing KPIs. You really got to understand the company's goals and financials and forecasts, how your product performs, how the marketing supports that, show your attribution. I've even done data where we showed what % of all new customers come from marketing I have direct attribution on.
Yeah.
Versus we only have correlation. Look, you can use media mix modeling. You can use other modeling stuff to try to show the impact. Of course, direct attribution is the easiest ones, right? Direct mail, pay-per-click, if you have an affiliate lead buying type thing, those you can do direct attribution.
Yeah.
Then you can do the ones where you maybe have indirect attribution or partial attribution, and you got to do some dark side math to sort of get there.
Yeah.
But I think you establish that credibility with the direct attribution, you can sort of get there. I think that's been the second thing I'm probably most proud of at QCHI is we've been able to show that the marketing discipline is a driver of revenue and success in the company, and bake it into basically the financials and the DNA of the company. So it's not just an expense you lop off when we're not hitting our numbers for the quarter.
Yeah. No, I mean that's the holy grail for CMOs, right? Like attribution is top of mind for everybody. And we have, two segments of clients, one being, sort of the B2C financials and EDU and health. And then the other is on the B2B side, like largely SaaS and tech. And attribution is challenging one way or the other, but attribution is really challenging, like when you've got a 6-month sales cycle, right? And, but
way harder on the B2B side, definitely, because you've got a sales force engagement that's in between the marketing and the sales. B2C, which is actually ironically why I always have preferred B2C. Because I like attribution. I like the direct feedback loop,
right?
Which is more challenging and interesting because then you can keep playing with the levers to see the results and measure the results.
Yeah, 100%. But that's awesome. I'd be interested to talk more about attribution, but I'm curious just from a broader level, like what's really working for you guys in terms of channels? Like, is it mostly Google ads or mostly direct mail? Like how do they sort of stack rank in there?
We have intentionally tried not to become dependent on one, and we have seen them perform differently over time. And sometimes in our different markets, they perform differently in ways that I can't explain. Why in Missouri do people respond differently than Tennessee or Texas? I can't always tell you the answer. I can tell you they perform differently. So we have actually focused on what we call, which is somewhat of a joke, I guess, the horses of acquisition, almost like the horses of the apocalypse, but we do the horses of acquisition. And it's this idea that you don't want to have one horse in the race. You don't want to become dependent upon one channel of acquisition. So we focus more on how many can we get performing and driving because they help in different ways. We do use mail. That's a big one for us. We do pay-per-click, Google AdWords buys. The direct attribution there is great. And we have worked hard to not only do direct attribution through e-commerce channels, but also e-com site to store, where I know you visited the website and then you go into store because you prefer that experience, tracking it that way. And then broader digital tactics, digital display, but done through programmatic buys, CTTV, digital radio through programmatic buys. We're going up funnel a little bit there to build sort of awareness and pre-awareness in a very targeted way. That's been working really well. And then, of course,
how did you convince your CEO to do that? I'm wondering.
That requires a track record of being right more than you're wrong.
You're like, just believe me, man.
I tested this. It worked. Give me more money. I'll deliver more. It does. Okay. Now let's try the next thing. Let's try the next thing. And we proved direct mail work. We proved paid search worked. We had an affiliate lead buying program that we use, like many do. That worked through direct attribution. So then we go to direct attribution. I'm like, look, I'm only going to be on some leading indicator stuff, but look at all that stuff we did that works. So it does become trust me at some point. You test with small budgets before you go big. You share your leading indicator data. And the fourth one, honestly, which is the least sexy, but the one we always talk about from a budget standpoint, is SEO eats first. We feed SEO before we feed anything else, because that's just the most efficient source of acquisition on an ROI basis, even if I can't prove it all, because it helps the interplay, right? The cross attribution between paid search buy and an SEO or a programmatic buy, right? It starts to all get tricky. Media mix model. I want to say it's perfect, but we all know it's not. But so we really do focus heavily on SEO. Everybody should not forget that one, because that is a beast that needs to be fed every day. Steady pressure. And because we have retail stores and an e-commerce operation, we're omni-channel, it's even more important that we use the stores to help the website and the website to help the stores. And a symbiotic relationship. So those are our big four. Those are our big four. Based upon the nature of our business and stuff, we don't do broader mass media stuff.
Yeah.
We'll go in digital and get more targeted because our audience is more niche.
Yep.
So I think that's been the power. There's digital targeting you can do now that you couldn't do 10 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Like you can do mass media.
Yes.
Within your target audience, right? So like you got full cut, like as far as your target audience is concerned, like, you're sponsoring the Super Bowl, right? Like they're like, these people are everywhere.
Yes. So that to me is where we're focused.
Yeah.
Because traditional stuff is just too broad and wasteful. And maybe in my opinion, the pricing and some of that stuff hasn't come down to the reality of their decreased reach.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I had Larry Kim on the pod. Larry Kim was the founder of, WordStream, which was, this big PPC management company / tech. And he sold that, for tens of millions of dollars, and then went on to do this thing called Mobile Monkey. But he's like a real badass, like really just OG marketer, but just like super smart. And I asked him, I'm like, what's your number one secret? And he's like, the ultimate growth hack is brand. And the reason, more or less, like what he was, selling me on was to invest in brand, because back in those days, he was like, that's what the algorithms want, right? Like more and more the algorithms are going to move toward that. So like the investment that you're doing in SEO, is paying off, but it will pay off all the greater, like if Google recognizes you as a really recognizable brand, which there's all types of signals. Brand search volume is one of the biggest ones, but it was kind of prophetic in a way because this was before AI and certainly before Google's AI overviews, right? And there's a lot of companies that now are kind of in trouble because, the AI overviews are basically sitting on top of the results and they're seeing fewer and fewer clicks. And it tends to be like relatively well-known brands that get served and cited in those AI overviews. So somebody that had like commented recently on that episode, which was a couple years ago at this point. So I rewatched it recently, but it was just like really kind of like he's sort of just predicted the future in a way.
I've always thought a brand is a shortcut. It's a shorthand, right? It represents a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a symbol in someone's mind that represents a lot of attributes, benefits, perceptions, right? All rolled up into one package.
Yeah.
It can be slightly different across people, but if you're doing a great job, there's more consistency than not. And in today's fragmented world, what first pops into someone's head is, oh, I need this. Who am I going to go look for?
Right.
Carries a lot of weight. And there's even this, and you've seen it in research, the fact that I know of you applies some credibility. Even though that's somewhat illogical, just because I've heard you a lot doesn't mean you're somehow more credible.
Right.
But there's this promise that if you're everywhere and you have that much money, you must be doing something right.
Right. Yeah.
So the power of brand awareness, I mean, it can work against you if you're perceived to be well-known and popular for an older generation, then your younger generation can be like, oh, well, you're not for me.
Yeah.
Right. It's like social media evolution from Facebook to Instagram to Snapchat.
Yeah.
Or to Snapchat, right? By age.
Yeah.
Which one you do escape the old people, you just keep running.
Right.
Same premise, sometimes really dominant brands, but I agree that it's going to become even more important. And maybe for a while their brand used to be important in a world of just, it was all TV advertising, radio advertising. Then digital came over and all of a sudden it became, got to win at the bottom of the funnel. And now with AI and I think everything and the ability to do digital targeting, the brand starts to become, I don't think it was ever unimportant, but maybe its importance dials up a little more.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does because think about, so you're way more likely to rank both in the natural searches as well as the AI overview. The more you invest there, the more brand search volume you'll see. And like if you break your SEO traffic down into segments, of course, that's going to be by far the most profitable of it, right? Like the highest conversion rate of click to lead and probably highest conversion rate of lead to sale, right? Same within your paid search campaigns. And then also like on paid social, you'll get higher click-through rates, which will be better, whatever they call it, quality scores and cheaper CPMs. So it really does like go all the way through.
And there's so much difference in that performance. When we work with our agencies, I require the reporting to break it out. You cannot lump branded and unbranded together,
Right.
because brand is so dominant, and at a smaller budget, you're of course spending on brand. So then it washes out the average. I'm like, no, we gotta look at that separate.
Yeah. It's
This
like your
brand is
CPA
smart.
was $2.50. I was like,
Yeah, but if I spend another $2, it's not going to be that. So looking at branded search separate from unbranded is obviously a requirement. And because your growth that you can control is probably more on the unbranded than branded.
yeah. Dude, I have one other
But
question for you. Time is really flying by here. But you
I
strike
teach
me.
like 12 hours about marketing.
Yeah, right. Um, you strike me as a performance guy, like as a direct response guy at your core. I'm curious, when you spend on programmatic, like how do you view that? How do you like, are you still looking at it in the same way, like on a CPA basis? Uh, or or how do you view it to say, yes, this is working, or no, it's not?
That's the hardest one. I don't have a great answer other than I do not look at it with the same level of focus on CPA as you would from a paid search campaign,
Yeah.
because you don't see the conversion right on direct action, right? You don't see a direct click to apply, click to go to the website type action. So if you did it based on that, it doesn't perform.
Yeah.
We're starting to get into more of looking how our other channels perform, which is a little bit in the world of media mix modeling, but looking at how well our other channels perform when we're on with programmatic, we are seeing a lift in performance in organic and paid.
Yeah.
So this is where, back to your prior comment about the art and science of advertising and marketing. And then sometimes you gotta say, just trust me. You can instinctually see it improve. When we dial up our programmatic buys, we've seen the improvements across all the other digital products.
Yeah.
And we've seen growth in even the brand search volume on organic and paid.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of correlational analysis there, but I don't use the same criteria, because if you did, you'd never do it.
Right.
But yep, you do it. I see the improvements in the tactics, across the other performance metrics. So we're still probably working on how we do cross-channel attribution that way. That's probably the one that we're focused on now as I look ahead to the next year. That's one of our focus points.
Yeah. And we have a large financial service client that, spends heavily on Google search as well as Meta and TV, like mass media, like, millions of dollars a month on TV, like really sizable. And similar to you, they're always trying to unlock new channels. So they challenged us on YouTube. They were like, YouTube is emerging. Like, let's go see if we can crack the code on YouTube. So, we put up our best ads. We gave it our best shot. Our cost per, whether you looked at leads or deals originated or deals closed, was like roughly double what it was on Meta, what it was showing in platform. And, we were able to like get it down a little bit, but, it was more or less showing at double. And on a cost per lead basis, it was more like triple, but the quality of the leads were better and they were selling through better. So they were like, yeah, this doesn't look great, but we convinced them to do a holdout test, like a geo holdout, where we spent considerably in certain markets and not in others. And they found an incremental lift to the tune of like 3x. So then basically we were able to view it with that lens and it was profitable suddenly. And they were like, open up the floodgates kind of thing. But YouTube, I think is like, I think it's a gold mine.
It's funny. When I'm on the data analytics side of the data scientists, we say never imply causality from a correlation, right? But on the marketing side, sometimes you have to do that because that's what's available. So what you just said is a correlational analysis, right? I had a holdout sample, I had a market, even though I can't control all of the variables. No market is a perfect proxy for your test market, right?
Yeah.
But you can get really close. And that's sometimes where that that instinct and the art of marketing comes in, right, to do it. And I've done that as well. And we have found that my Len Nation example of the new brand was an example of that too, right? That was a correlational analysis. We did the new brand here. We didn't do it over here. Most of the other variables we controlled for, look and lo and behold.
Yeah.
I believe in approach. I think you have to be willing to do that where you can, because back to your point, brand matters. And if you're getting good brand awareness on YouTube, but it's not resulting in direct action because I'm on YouTube to learn and do other things, either entertainment or figure out how to do something, right? Before I start any home improvement project, I'm Googling how to do that home improvement project, right? Get some tips before I make it.
Oh, yeah.
People are not in always the purchase mindset. So but advertising, that's a little bit of like you can be your own worst enemy. Like I've had the challenges with my CEO. We do such a good job of proving attribution. When you go over something that doesn't have direct attribution, he's like, where's my direct attribution? Where's my concrete proof? And I'm like, well, well, if it doesn't have that, we got to do a little correlation. He's like, Jevan, you told me never to assume causality with correlation. I'm like, wow.
You're like, how come you always remember the things I don't want you to remember, but you never remember the things I do?
But look, that's to me what's fun and interesting and challenging about marketing is every rule is a rule you can break. Every tactic or approach can't be put in the same box and use the same rules for.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to explore different ways to get at that.
Totally. Okay, man. Last question for you, and then we'll get you out of here. But what are your biggest challenges? What keeps you up at night?
AI definitely keeps me up at night to make sure we don't fall behind other people.
Yeah.
We're a small company. We try to be small but mighty, but keeping up with the big guys who have more resources does keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Are we so focused on getting daily stuff done that we don't do, we don't think on the future and then we get behind.
Right.
Regulation is always a challenge in the financial services space. Changing political winds always can create disruption.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. And then on a personal level, it's like, what did I forget? What did I miss? What opportunity did I not? Because I was focused over here. What did I miss over here?
Yeah.
Keeps me up at night a little bit because I want to have them all. I want to have all the ideas. I want to be doing everything.
Yeah.
So it's that constant debate of, did I prioritize the right way? Did when you're betting on this versus that, did you pick the right one?
Right.
Because you can't do them all.
Yeah.
Those are probably some big anxieties.
Yeah. No, I think those are shared by pretty much everybody listening right now. All three. But this has been awesome. Jevan, thank you so much for the time. I learned a lot and was inspired. Like I'm going to go and look at some issues that we've been having and kind of try to take this lateral thinking process to it. For folks listening, if you learned anything or were inspired or had a good laugh at any point, give us a like or a thumbs up on wherever you get your pods, or share this with a friend. We always appreciate that. Jevan, for folks that would like to learn more about you or Len Nation, where would you direct them to?
lennation.com is our website. So that's probably the first place. Or if you want to talk to me specifically, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. So I'm there. It's Jevan Taylor.
Nice. You publish some good stuff on there. I've been reading some of your stuff. It's good.
I'm trying to get back into more. I appreciate being here. This is fun. This is the most fun thing I did today. Sometimes at this level, you end up focusing on a lot of things you don't want to do, and instead of the good, interesting things you want to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
But so this,
I enjoyed it a lot myself. Definitely had a lot of fun. I wish we could have gone for another hour. I think we got plenty more to talk about. But I know you got to get out of here. So stick around on the line for just 1 second and we'll wrap up. But for everybody else, that was another awesome episode of Revenue Driven CMO, and we will see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us here today. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at revenuedrivencmo.com. That's revenuedrivencmo.com. And hey, exclusive for listeners of this podcast, Web Mechanics will do 10 to 20 hours of work for you for free. Literally no sales calls, no BS. Just give them a problem and they will put a team to work for you for free for 10 to 20 hours, even if you're already a client. If you're struggling with demand gen, lead gen, SEO, SEM, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, conversion optimization, if you can't get Facebook or Meta ads to work for the life of you, or you can't figure out attribution, Web Mechanics will take a good hard look at whatever problem you give them, whatever programs you put in front of them, and they will give you an objective, informed opinion, plus some advice from 10 to 20 hours of senior level attention. And that's just because you're a listener of this podcast. So I would suggest take them up on this offer. It's ridiculous. Go to revenuedrivencmo.com/free, fill out the 2-minute form, and you will not regret it. Literally zero downside, unlimited potential for growth. So do yourself a favor, revenuedrivencmo.com/free, no hyphens, no punctuations. You will be happy about that decision.